So you've decided to spend $500 on a running shoe, but you've got two options: buy last year's model or wait till the fall to be able to get the second edition. Which should you do? Today, we're breaking down the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 1 versus the Pro Evo 2. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Now today we have a crazy comparison between the Pro Evo 1 and Pro Evo 2, but if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this comparison, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, so I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while, but you haven't yet hit the subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, like I said, today's comparison is between the Evo 1 and Evo 2, and some quick disclaimers and disclosures are that I, believe it or not, purchased both of these shoes with my own money. Both of them I got off of the second-hand market or resale market because I was not lucky enough to get them in the drawings initially, so I spent a lot of money. That being said, I have been in communication with Adidas before in the past, though they still haven't sent me a pair of shoes. That being said, anytime I do receive a pair of shoes from a brand, I'm not paid to review them, I'm not asked to include shoes in any specific content, no one gives me talk tracks, talking points, anything like that. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these shoes. Now the Pro Evo model is really supposed to be what they would say like a single marathon use optimized shoe. Now technically, like, every super shoe is only supposed to be at its best for its first race, so that sounds weird, but really, like, they've pushed the boundaries with these shoes to where basically after one marathon worth of mileage, or maybe a little bit more, they're not supposed to be super useful to you anymore and supposed to break down pretty good. As such, that's how we're going to be talking about the shoes today. Now, both the shoes come in at a crazy $500 price point, which obviously is on the very, very high end of super shoes today. You know, when they released the one, I don't want to say that was justified, because I don't think that, like, I'm not necessarily in support of single-use shoes, but it was something revolutionary at the time, and so I see why they did that, to kind of realistically make it almost like a collector's item in some ways, and so that's really what you were paying for, was the exclusivity of the shoe, right? With the Evo 2, it seems like it is going to be a little bit more widely available, and there are other shoes that I will compare it to later on, which are kind of starting to push those same weight boundaries as the Evo 1 did. And so from a price perspective, personally, I feel like they're pushing it with that, and they need to kind of come back down, believe it or not, to like the $300 or so range where most of the premium marathon racing shoes are sitting now. From a specs perspective, the shoes weigh the same, which is 4.6 ounces and 130 grams. So they're still the lightest shoes on the market so far that have been released. I have to double check where the new Metaspeed Ray is going to come in, because I think that one is actually crazy light as well. And then you have the R3 from Puma up here, which is, I think that one comes in at 6 ounces, which is still crazy light, but is not quite as light as these two, obviously. Then from a stack perspective, this is really one of the main changes that was made in the shoes. You can see that the Evo 2 looks significantly taller, at least like throughout the shoe, maybe not necessarily in the heel, but what you have is 38 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop in the 1, and then you have a 39 in the heel, 36 in the forefoot for a 3mm drop in the 2. So basically what they did was they put more stack in the forefoot for the most part, and then you just have a more aggressive toe spring, which we'll talk about. From a fit perspective, I feel like they both pretty much fit the same. The Evo 2 might fit a little bit better lengthwise. So the Evo 1 was short, it was low volume, it was snug, and overall just narrow. Like, it was pretty tight squeeze in this shoe. The Evo 2 is similar, but I do feel like it fits a little bit longer. So I almost would have half-sized up, but I didn't really have the luxury of trying multiple pairs of this shoe. I risked it and stayed with my normal size in the Evo 2, and I was glad that I did, because I feel like the 10.5 fits pretty much correctly for me there. Now the upper is this crazy ultra light mesh in both of the shoes, and it feels, I mean, frankly, it feels flimsy. And like, I don't know how you get a shoe this light without that being the case. So, you know, I think that from an overall volume perspective, they're both really, really low volume, but the lockdown in both of them is solid. I think the lockdown is a little bit better in the 2s. Something to call out with these shoes is, like, I feel like where you lace is not quite as high as in other shoes. So you can see like the eyelet kind of ends here, where I think in a traditional running shoe, it might end closer back here. And then the tongue is not gusseted, and it's just kind of like a flimsy, just really piece tongue there. Like it doesn't stitch in anywhere. The laces do run through it there in the middle, but frankly, the tongue bunches up a ton in both of the models, and it's really, really annoying. So you kind of have to fuss with it when you put on the shoe to make sure it's laying flat, and then tighten your shoes down to make sure that it doesn't bunch up, right? So like the uppers are not necessarily comfortable on either of them. You have some very light cushion in the heel, but really these shoes are optimized for weight and not necessarily comfort. I had to use the runner's knot on the Evo 1. I haven't yet had to use the runner's knot on the Evo 2 yet, or on the Evo 2 though. And I think like you just have to be okay with the lockdown being just decent, but I do wish that that lacing system came up a little bit higher, and that we had some better quality laces and a, like, maybe not a gusseted tongue, but at least a tongue that had more, like, had the laces run through it at multiple points. Like in the R3, same general idea where the tongue is very, very thin, flimsy, and it's not gusseted, but the laces run through it at multiple points, so it sits better on your foot. Now, despite being so paper thin, you're not gonna tear the upper. It felt like I was going to at times, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw, like, if there was some wear and tear with it. It's made to be as light as possible while, like, just hanging on basically. Now moving to the midsoles, you have the Light Strike Evo foam, which is a supercritical TPEE, and it is technically the same compound that is in the Adios Pro 4. The difference is these are uncompressed. So these are basically laser cut from large slabs of foam, versus in most super shoes, they're compression molded. So they stick like a piece of foam in a mold, and then they inject them, and then they fill the mold basically. So it's different where these are gonna be, like, it allows the foams to be a lot lighter, but less durable, right? They're not gonna be able to withstand quite as much. So the foam is the same, and it feels the same underfoot. It actually feels closer to the Evo SL than it does the Pro 4 in terms of, like, it's soft, it does compress, but it's not gonna like be overly squishy, where the like the Adios Pro 4 is definitely squishy. Same feeling as like the Endorphin Elite 2, right? These are more Evo SL-esque, where it's soft. You almost get like a thud when they hit the ground. Like it's not gonna like squish down. You get almost like a thud, but then the responsiveness paired with the weight of both of these shoes is insane. Now, for me, personally, I did feel faster in the 2, and that's mainly, I do think, because of this aggressive rocker. Now, I'm a midfoot striker, and when I fatigue, I drop back into the heel. So with that midfoot though, I feel like I'm landing with more foam now. There's more foam underfoot, and then you spring off. You know, in both of these shoes though, it's one of those sensations where you don't feel like you're running fast, and then you look at your watch and you realize what paces you're hitting, right? So that's kind of, it's a unique sensation to these two shoes that I haven't felt really in any other super shoe, where like, it really does feel like it's protecting your joints and like making paces feel easier, but you don't necessarily feel fast, you just are running fast. Pro Evo 2 does feel significantly taller, which makes sense. And I don't know if it was made a little bit wider too, but it does feel maybe a little bit more stable. But for the most part, they're not like stability shoes by any means. They're not stable shoes by any means. I mean, there's not a whole lot of support, period. Moving to the outsoles, this is where some of the bigger changes were made. From my understanding, it is a different rubber compound, but it's still a liquid poured rubber. And you can see that now there's kind of those grooves in the forefoot area. Now, the rubber on the Pro Evo 1 was pretty crazy. It gripped the ground like really, really well, despite not looking very sticky. The Evo 2, I feel like, does grip even better. Like, it was really, really shocking how it was gripping the ground, but you can almost see through like 2 wears in this shoe only. Like, it is, I feel like it's gonna eat away and a lot easier. And like the foam in between those grooves already feels like it's wearing down, or looks like it's wearing down. So, you know, again, it's only supposed to be optimized for 1 race. So really, like, I only expect to get like 40 to 50 miles max out of these shoes. But it is crazy how quickly that really is wearing down. And like the foam does compress like crazy through a race. So I wore the Pro Evo 1 for a marathon, Grandma's marathon last year, and you can actually see like where the carbon fiber rods are starting to stick out, right? Because it just compresses so much. You're not seeing that yet in this shoe, but I don't have that many miles overall on it so far. So the grip though, absolutely crazy. I do think the grip is better in the 2, but I do think that comes at additional durability costs, which is kind of crazy again, considering the price and just like the usage of the shoe. So as far as my pick between the 2, I do think I actually like the Evo 2 better. I think it fits a little bit better. I think it is more responsive, or at least like you get a little bit more bounce out of that forefoot area. I really like the feel. Like it was my favorite super shoe last year. I chose to race my marathon in it, and if I had to race another marathon tomorrow, I think I'd be choosing, you know, between the Pro Evo 2 or the R3 right now are kind of my 2. I'll do a comparison of those, but like high level, I feel fast in the R3. I feel relaxed in the Evo 2. So, but I'm still able to hit the same paces in both of them. So for like a 26.2 marathon distance, I might still go with the Pro Evo 2 because everything just feels really effortless in these shoes. But I do worry if the fit will kind of fatigue me and if I wouldn't feel as secure, and that was my big concern with the ones. And I do think I had some form breakdown that maybe I would have benefited from a slightly more supportive shoe in the later stages of my race. So, but between these two, like again, my pick, I do think I go Pro Evo 2. I do think that there were some decent upgrades. I like the additional foam in the forefoot, but frankly, like both of these shoes are wild. And you know, there's not a whole lot of change that went into the 2 because it's still just such a crazy shoe. So just some final thoughts. Frankly, like Adidas needs to reevaluate the price of these shoes. Like they just do. I know that probably is hypocritical coming from me who paid secondhand or second market prices for these. It's a luxury that I have because I get a lot of shoes for free from brands. So I like when there is a shoe I really, really want to test, even if it's hard to get, I'm able to shell out extra for it so that I can review it, right? But I just, with where the market is at, and like the competitors like the Metaspeed Ray, the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite, Elite Nitro 3, whatever the name is, right? Like there are other brands coming for this category that might be doing it better already, right? And are $200 cheaper, which is insane. That's a whole other super shoe a couple of years ago, right? So I do think Adidas needs to maybe step back with the pricing. At the same time, they sold out. So maybe they don't, what do I know? But really, I think that, you know, if you're looking at these shoes and you're saying like, I don't know, like $500, but I really want to try it, I do think there are other options for you. But in my experience, these shoes are pretty wild overall. So anyways, yeah, I haven't tried a shoe in 2025 from Adidas that I felt like missed. I haven't tried that many shoes from Adidas though so far. It's really just been their performance line. So looking forward to hopefully being able to review some more shoes and some more options from them because, you know, there's a lot of other performance trainers, even some of their standard daily trainers that I think are really, really popular, really, really good. But if you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. Please let me know in the comments what other comparisons you'd like to see and what questions you have about these shoes. In addition, if there's anything I can be doing better as a reviewer to make these reviews more entertaining, educational, just more fun for each and every one of you, let me know down below as I'm constantly looking to improve. And if you stuck around this far and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video. And as always, we'll finish the video out with a question, which is, do you feel like these are worth $200 more than the next closest competitors? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.